Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Marchuk. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. In this episode, I'll be chatting with Josh Drean, the co-author of the new book, Employment is Dead: How Disruptive Technologies Are Revolutionizing the Way We Work, which sounds like a really cool title, by the way. Josh has also been featured in Harvard Business Review, Forbes, Fast Company, and MIT Technology. In addition to his writing, Josh is the co-founder of the Work3 Institute, a Web3 advisor at Harvard Innovation Labs, and an HR transformation expert who connects emerging technologies with workplace strategies. And if that's not enough, he's also one of the top 100 foremost experts in the metaverse. And luckily for you, I don't have any VR goggles, so we are not going to be in the metaverse today. So welcome, Josh.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here.
So beyond all the things here that I've just mentioned, tell us more about yourself that maybe is outside of some of all this work stuff that I just talked about.
Yeah, I have 3 kids, 8, 5, and 3. They are all boys, so they keep us very busy. We live in Minnesota.
Cool.
We play a lot of hockey around here, so that's fun.
Nice.
And just really, really passionate about employee experience design and making sure that employees are maximizing, obviously, their productivity, but also satisfaction at work.
Gotcha. And you do realize that in 10 years, you're going to be in the poorhouse because you'll have 3 teenage boys who will likely eat you out of house and home.
Oh, they've already started. We keep Costco in business around here.
All right. So you do obviously a lot of things. It's a lot related to employees, employment workforce, that sort of stuff. And your book really dives into that. Tell us a little bit more. I have not seen your book yet. I just came out. I have not received a book yet. So I don't know exactly what's in it, just other than the kind of thing, the reviews I've read and whatnot. What does your book cover?
Yeah, first and foremost, maybe we should level set. When we say employment is dead, we are not saying robots will come take your jobs. AI is the future and you're out of work. The subtitle is actually probably something we should note, which is how disruptive technologies are revolutionizing the way we work. The argument of the book is that we believe that traditional models of employment are failing to adapt to the needs of the modern workforce, that the disengaged epidemic we are experiencing among employees where they are unhappy at work, don't trust their boss, don't trust the company, and are fearing layoffs. They are fearing that AI will take their job. They understand that, when you fill out an employee engagement survey, that information might not be used for your benefit, but for the benefit of the company. And so what we care about the most is, how do we get back to a place where employees feel empowered to do the best work of their lives? We believe it's going to happen through emerging technologies. We don't think it is a people problem. It's a process problem. And that when you go to work, it might not look like a traditional, I'm at a workplace 9 to 5. I have a boss who tells me exactly what to do, and I just complete those tasks. It might look like working in the gig economy, mixing and matching several streams of income. It might be opening an app and clicking start, and you're working on projects with several companies that probably get you more excited to go to work rather than, the monotony of what we have today.
That makes sense. So coming from the perspective of SS&C Blue Prism, we've been doing RPA, robotic process automation, for decades. And so we've heard the same kind of mantra, oh my gosh, the robots are going to take my job kind of theory for a really long time. And obviously that has not come true. And what it has done, though, is it has freed up employees to do things that they were actually looking forward to doing rather than some of the monotonous work.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? You should be excited that a robot is coming to take your job if that is the case, because it's a lot of the automated stuff. All of the automatic rote tasks that employees are doing, the buttons that they are pushing, is going to be taken over by robots. I think sometimes in the media, we get so caught up in we have AI influencers and we have an AI CEO and AI speakers who are replacing us. And that's just gimmicks, right? What it's really going to do when the hype cycle dies down, what we're really going to see is that the stuff that we don't like to do is going to be taken over by robots, which is going to free up a lot of our time to actually chase those projects that we like.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in some of your recent TikTok videos, you emphasize the importance of designing engaging employee experiences. How do you see AI and all this AI you just mentioned playing a role to enhance these experiences, especially for, say, like the Gen Z crowd?
Gen Z is so excited about AI. Well, it's interesting, right? Because if you hop on TikTok and you kind of do some research and you see how these students just barely graduating in comp sci, or, they just got a CS degree and now they are excited to join the workforce. It's like, what messages have they received around AI? Is it, I can't use AI to write my papers, or AI is supercharging the way that I am going to carve my path in my career moving forward? And so there's, different camps for sure, but I would say that for the most part, there's a general excitement, and it's so interesting how fast some of my smartest friends started using AI seamlessly into their daily tasks. It's a calculator for everything is kind of how I like to think about it. And those hard and difficult and cognitive load activities that you are doing will be outsourced to AI so that you can guide and direct. And who knows what that truly looks like moving forward. We're still in the early stages, but I'm a proponent.
So do you see the evolution of the capabilities that Gen AI has influencing how the Gen Zers will chart a path for their career? Because I mean, you end up graduating, you say, hey, I have a comp sci degree, I have an accounting degree, I have a whatever degree. But when you bring in an AI tool or any kind of tool that helps unload some of that repetitive activity, it lets you think more strategically. Do you think that that's going to support maybe, I don't know, unfolding some other, more boxed in kind of career paths and opening them up to different?
I mean, it's Sam Altman who said that they're expecting the first $1 billion company to be run by one person. That's the vision, right? It's, as an entrepreneur, I have a vision for my idea, and here are the boxes that I need to check in order to get there. And a lot of times it takes a lot of manpower, a lot of people behind you. It takes funding. What if, these emerging Mark Zuckerbergs, who have new and creative ways of using AI, it's, they're AI natives at this point, figure out ways to automate 99% of it, and they are just orchestrating the process there. I think that it really does break down a lot of these silos that we see, where it's, you can only be an accountant, you can only be in marketing, you can only be here, and don't go outside of that because you're just a developer. AI is going to be like, oh, well, I actually am a jack of all trades, not a master necessarily, but I have AI who is mastering it for me, so I don't have to.
So,
kind of an interesting thought.
So you build those companies, and assuming that they're, we're going to see eventually the company of one that's $1 billion company. In the meantime, and even after that, we're still going to have people employed, right? So you're still going to be hiring people for specific reasons. And you mentioned that traditional resumes are outdated, and I don't know where we go from there. How do you express your background and or your capabilities when you've engaged AI to support you in building the things that you're proud of in the past?
Yeah, well, so yes, there's two parts here. Let's take a step back and just kind of what you mentioned is we're still going to have employees, we're still going to have people employed. I think the real question you need to be asking is, why would an employee want to work for you? Are you on the cutting edge of AI? Because they are, and they're looking for a company that's willing to push the boundaries on what's possible and leverage your skills in AI to do incredible things, to 10x productivity, 20x productivity. So I think companies really have to take a hard look at themselves and be like, I may not be the most attractive form of work, and I need to evolve in order to make sure that that is a reality. So these young students who have AI tech stacks, what do they need? Is it kind of the traditional model of I go through school, I get a degree, that one piece of paper says that I am credible, and therefore I can get a high-paying job at a firm and be there for 30 to 40 years, and I should be just fine. That model is dead.
It's long dead.
That is why we call it employment is dead. And so what are they chasing now? What is the change there? The change is I am going to maximize my skills. I'm going to become as attractive as possible. And I might not be doing that for one organization. I might be doing that because I can work for several organizations at a time. So this is how we're doing it wrong. And then I'll say how we should be doing it right and how the future is looking like that. How we're using AI wrong when it comes to onboarding is, a CHRO gets on there, they type up a job description using AI and they put it out there. Then you get a flood of resumes that are absolutely perfectly tailored to the job description because they used AI to match it. And then you use AI to sort through, those applications that aren't going to make it. And then, if you are one of the lucky 1% who actually gets a human interaction with someone, you will, be fine. But we're watching that play out right now. What that could look like in the future is that using AI and blockchain technologies, you can verify your skills instantly through a digital ledger. So essentially, if you completed a project, it will say there. It's almost like a digital wallet, a digital resume. Right now, you have to verify my resume because I just made it up in Word. Now it's imprinted on the blockchain. So you know exactly what skills I have, what level of skills I have, which projects I've been on, which companies I've worked on, and AI will be able to match you on projects that you're excited about, maybe around your preferences. I only want to work, 3 hours a day. Okay, well, let's find a project that works there. And so I think the future of work, leveraging AI and Web3 technologies, is going to show us a world where going to work is as easy as opening an app and getting started.
Interesting. So what about for those skills or those roles that are not as easily quantifiable in a blockchain? How do those roles, or how could those roles provide that same kind of background that a resume would?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about those hypothetical constructs that we can't necessarily measure, right? What are the social skills that you have? We've referred to them as soft skills, which I hate that term. It's the human skills. How can we quantify a human is essentially what we're asking. And the way that we've done it traditionally is like, well, if you've been working with some of these big brands, you probably know what you're doing because you were able to sell yourself. You were able to work on this project and get it done. If you have a testimonial, it probably means that they enjoyed working with you, right? So we have signs today to kind of help measure that. What does that look like moving forward? I would hope that we could get to a place where it shows this person has 90% skills and empathy. What that looks like, it's still fairly nebulous, and I don't know if we'll be able to get there, but I think we're going to just continue to use some of those signals.
Gotcha. So when we see this transition towards, you mentioned AI creating the job description, people out there using AI to create the tools, then AI, how do you get past all of that to reflect it in today's day and age? We don't have the blockchain showing us all this stuff. We don't have those other things right now, but we do have AI and people leveraging AI to create, you said, very well matched cover letters and resumes to specific job openings. How do you break through that wall to actually see the person on the other side of it when in fact you're simply sorting through the masses that are already pre-tailored for what you've asked for?
Yeah, I mean, the old standards of having your competitive advantage are gone, right? Competitive advantage was you could write the best resume, and the best resume won. Well, everyone can have a best resume now, so how do you differentiate now? And I honestly feel like the adoption will come from the humans who are using it, right? So something fascinating was happening on YouTube. When AI first launched and you saw ChatGPT had their image generator model, a lot of YouTube channels started using AI imagery in their videos. And it was cool, it was new. We were surprised at how good it looked and how interesting it was. Or we had copywriters who were running the ChatGPT and they were plugging in tons of blog articles into LinkedIn and they were just using it. And after the hype died down a little bit, you started to realize, like, I can recognize it. There's a brand. There's a style that it's using, and I don't like it. Or, but we spent a lot of time using AI to help tailor this book, and there are clauses that ChatGPT would use that was just
Did you delve into it?
Yeah, absolutely. If there was any delving to be done, we did it, right? It's like, we had the content, we had the form, we had the idea. and we used ChatGPT quite a bit in order to like take my voice. Can I train this model to sound like me? Is it going to put out content that makes sense from my standpoint? Or is it pulling from the internet other ideas? And so I think, I could definitely show, not on this podcast, but I can show you my 16-step method of, going back and forth. And I really truly feel like our book is one of the first generation of books that is like a human automation symbiosis, where we have, we worked together seamlessly to bring it into the world. There are thought leaders who believe that, maybe that's the case today. It will get to the point where AI just takes over. But kind of going back to that YouTube example, people aren't using AI images as much anymore because you can tell, you can sniff it out. Or if you catch what I call a NOVA clause in a LinkedIn post, it's all the time, it will say, not only, but also. And it usually gives you like 3 clauses. And so when I see that language, I'm like, I don't even trust you anymore, because you just took it straight from AI and you plugged it in. And so your competitive advantage, to make this point, will be what makes you human. And when you leverage that in the work that you do, people will notice it, they will feel it. And that is what I believe.
So to take out that a little further, you've mentioned in some of your keynote speeches, the need for human-centric digital transformation. And on our podcast, we certainly mentioned this a number of different times and had folks talk about that. But what strategies can employers take or adopt to ensure that the AI integration isn't really compromising the human element within the workplace?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time talking about this. No, I mean, because you're highlighting the problem, right? And this is an age-old problem. This is not just AI, but a lot of times we get really excited about the bells and whistles of the new software, of the new tool. It's pitched to us as the solve for a lot of our pains, when the real pain is that we haven't even been strategic about what we want to accomplish, or we haven't even considered the people that will be affected by using this software. And so what we do at the Work3 Institute is we start there. We have a very specific strategy that we use to help you start with people first, right? 10% of what you're doing needs to start with people, and then we move to the process. What is the process of getting that done? And technology is only the last 10%. What tech are you going to use to get you there? AI will get you there if you are strategic, but a lot of times we, again, just get caught up in the shininess of the new thing. And here's some interesting stats, right? 97% of CEOs expect AI to increase productivity, but 47% of employees who are actually using AI say they don't know how to use it to meet the expectations of their boss. Interpreted that, to me, means we're really excited about AI. We purchase the tool and we put it in the hands of the employee and we say, go be more productive. That's not going to work. Employees need to know how and why and where. And it, again, will happen. But if you don't have that strategy in place, you can't win.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we start talking about, we start adopting AI. Mentioned earlier on, you have a $1 billion company run by one individual as a potential. Companies that are, say, legacy or larger organizations that have been around for a while, they have a lot of employees. And to your point, there's expectations that there's new tools that are coming up. There's still people that are in the organization. They're still selling to other people who are buying whatever goods or services that they're having. So there's a lot of people involved in this here, and AI as being the tool. Do you see a potential, or what potential do you see for the technology to be, let's say, overshadowing the employee part of things? You talk about people, process, and technology. If it's 10%, technology is only 10%, why is it that the people part or the process part is not getting the same level of engagement or excitement?
Yeah. That's opening up another can of worms, right? Which I'm glad that we're doing this, right?
That's what I do. That's what I do. I open lots of cans of worms, and I hope you have all the expert answers.
There you go. Just sprinkle them all over the place and say, pick up these worms. Where are we at? It's a great question. For me, right, I am rooted in employee experience design, really kind of the HR world, how HR is evolving people operations. And so for me, the answer is that employees are they're not just disengaged, they're not getting the resources that they need to be effective. And a lot of the problems that we see there are just because we aren't willing or able to really meet their needs. So we talk about the 10 operating principles of work 3 in our book. These are the non-negotiables of the modern workforce. And it doesn't have anything to do with like the ping pong tables or the snacks in the break room or offering hot yoga. It is principles of flexibility. Are we allowing employees to work on their
flexibility goes to the goat yoga then. You get rid of hot yoga.
You got to get real,
that's where you
real flexible there. That's right. The hot goat yoga with Chobani pudding.
That's a aromatherapy nightmare right there. So anyway, go on.
It's are we allowing them to work on their circadian rhythm? Are we giving them the autonomy that they need to make decisions based on their job? Are we giving them ownership over the work that they do? And I'm not talking about like, here, this is the project that you own. It's actual compensation. It's contribution-based compensation for the value that they generate for the company. We will see very soon models shift from, oh, like productivity to us is how many hours have you sat in your seat? And we want you back into the office to track that, to what is the value you generated for the company? And we will incentivize you to generate additional value because you will get a piece of that. And it's not just sales, like, oh yeah, you make more sales, you're going to get, compensation for that. We're talking like a real stake in the work that you do. And now we're getting into decentralized models for work, which is Web3 technologies and the next iteration of work. And that's, we will unpack that for you more in the book.
Gotcha. I see what you're doing here. Point you to the book. It's in the book.
Book will guide us.
You will open your eyes. Yeah. So, but I want to ask a specific question about that because I've had other guests on our show say something similar, which is the transition from traditional employment models. We're seeing, the pushback against return to office kind of stuff and whatever. But we started backing this up and taking a new look at resourcing in general. I have a digital workforce of robots able to do some work for me. They're now AI enabled, AI powered digital workers who are able to do a bunch of new types of work that perhaps even a couple of years ago they weren't able to. I have my employee base, which involves both seasoned veterans plus some new folks that have come in from either another organization or new out of college. I've got the capability of having contractors and partner organizations that I work with that I contract work out to. So now you have this very large, broad set of capabilities that your organization as a whole is taking advantage of. So when you look at that, how can traditional non-Web3 company, so talk about an insurance company or a bank or something like that, something who's been entrenched in a very standardized kind of industry, how can they take advantage and look at the resources as they are in the current state? Or are we waiting for something else before we get to that next capability of being able to look broadly across and orchestrate work across multiple types of resource pools?
Yeah, I come from a bit of a skeptical lens here, a bit of a younger generation lens, which is, the cycle has been emerging technologies disrupt companies, and you can get as granular as it takes, 37 years. So when you look at companies today who are looking to disrupt, it's typically not these standard industries, banking and accounting. Like, you are entrenched, you are going to be entrenched, and you might be able to leverage some of these tools enough to keep your clients happy. But we are seeing a whole slew of companies coming out. They're the decentralized bank. They're the cool bank. When money is controlled, money is corrupted is kind of, the rallying cry. So how about we do blockchain where no one controls it? And there's critics and there's proponents, and you really got to decide where you fit. Like, I do think that there's a major shift coming that isn't even on the radar of a lot of, maybe the boomer generation leaders. And it's because they are in power and they are the ones who are making the decisions. We're still kind of stuck in this world of we're kind of forced to RTO, but there will be a point where these emerging companies will come out and they will do incredible things that we've never seen before. And we'll just see the new Google, the new Apple, the new Big Four, and we'll just continue to ride the wave.
So you see more like fintech, insurtech, kind of fill in the blank tech, displacing, replacing, unseating some of the incumbents that are world players because they will be slower to react. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean,
that's it. That's the answer.
It's the next iteration, right? Like we saw that happen with the internet, whether you call it AI, whether you call it Web3, whether you call it blockchain, whether you call it NFTs, whatever we want to call it, there is a new iteration of the internet of work, and it's going to displace a lot of things. But it's a hopeful thing in my mind because it's like, well, great. I didn't want to be doing that anyway. Now I get to do what I love.
All right, so I have a question for you then. You are giving advice to a person in each generation for the next step in their career. We'll start with boomers and work backwards. What would your advice be right now for those people?
Oh, I love that question too. So I actually have, in my presentations, I have 2 different slides. And depending on the vibe of the organization, we either do the 101 class or the 301 class, which is, at the Work3 Institute, we work with some companies who are they are human-centric, digital-first organizations who are already implementing a DAO, or a decentralized autonomous organization. They are distributing token to their employees, and they are using Snapshot to be able to vote on a day-to-day basis on decisions that need to be made. So we've got this company who's already decentralized and they're already pushing forward into the future of work. And then we have companies who aren't even doing employee experience design at all, or they're not doing employee engagement surveys, or they're not doing anything for the well-being of their people. And so we start with some of the HR basics, if you will. But my advice to you is essentially, if you are struggling to attract top talent, attract the emerging generation, it might not be a them problem, it might be a you problem, and there are things that you could be doing to attract them. You just need to understand them, you need to ask them what they want and what they need, and do everything that you can to give it to them.
So let me turn the question around. How would you advise those folks in each of those generations who are currently working in a specific organization who may not necessarily be as decentralized or ready for this next wave? So think of the folks that are in current insurance companies or banks or whatnot in the various generational avenues. How would you advise them for their career as you see this next phase coming? How would you advise them to get prepared for that?
I mean, honestly, if I'm being truly honest, they are advising me. Of course. I mean, I would say that I am letting the younger generation advise me on what they want and what they need. And that's why I spend a lot of time, my YouTube channel is very simply, if you're not going to do employee engagement surveys at your organization and understand how your people are feeling, let's get on TikTok or LinkedIn and see what they're saying about you as an organization and try and package that information in a way that makes sense to you so that you can make those changes. A lot of the narrative that I'm hearing is, why do I want a career? The definition of a career is, I have a certain rung that I need to hit or a certain status that I need to hit, and none of it has to do with chasing my bliss or doing what I love. It's just, how can I climb the corporate ladder? And they're abandoning that concept. They're abandoning the idea of full-time employment. Why would I work full-time for a company that is taking up 80% of my time and 80% of my mental health when I could, fill in the blank about other emerging opportunities for work? I could be a freelancer, I could be a drop shipper, and a lot of these technologies still have to prove themselves. Only a few are making it work well. But what happens when that model works for everyone? That's the end of employment. And so I think we should take a take a nice dive into TikTok and understand what employees are saying and the younger generation is looking for, and look to meet those needs.
Do you think it's difficult for the older generation to understand that? For example, let me take a boomer perspective. I'm not a boomer myself, but let me take a boomer perspective on this. How these kids just don't want to work. I mean, I worked my way up here, and I'm in a spot where I'm a fill in the blank C-level executive, and it takes hard work to get here. How do you see that affecting the way that C-level executive operates their organization if they were to go to TikTok and hear this? I don't want to work for a job. I want to be able to do whatever, be a drop shipper, to have a flexibility in my career. How do you reconcile those two?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think one of the best ways that you can do is just to help find empathy in the younger generation and to help explain what it's like to grow up in 2025. The system that worked for you is not going to work for them. And they are educated, they are overeducated, if you will, and they understand how the process works. And so when you say, look, if you want to be a CEO someday, you got to work hard. And they look at it as like, well, one, I don't want to be a CEO. Two, there's only one of you, and there's probably like 800 people who are going for that spot. Why would I work decades of my life to accomplish something that probably won't materialize? And also, I am hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt going to school. You told me that if I went for 4 years, I would be able to find a job. I can't. You told me if I found a job, I would be able to buy a house. I can't. You told me that if I could buy a house, I would be able to live comfortably on one income. I can't. We can't even afford to have kids. And so all of a sudden you start to see these true challenges that the younger generation is facing, trying to use the same system, but it's not working for them. And when you understand that, you start to change your narrative. Like, oh, well, if I say just work hard and you will make it, that's not true. It simply isn't true. And so I think we just need to take a different approach. What do you want to accomplish? How can we help you accomplish those goals? How can we work together to drive towards that purpose at this organization rather than short-term shareholder value? How can we get the most money as possible in the hands of shareholders? Employees be damned.
Well, that is part of that whole capitalism challenge, isn't it? Because the shareholders are the ones holding that company and that CEO, the one CEO who has all the people working for him, responsible for that. So there's a definite demand that may be different from the bottom up than it is from the outside top down.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, right? Like the capitalistic model has it works, and that I'm a capitalist at heart as well, and it's just difficult when you again get on TikTok and you hear a lot of individuals talking about late stage capitalism, that it's about putting more money in the hands of the 1%. That doesn't help us at all, and it doesn't seem like you're interested in helping us at all. And so there are interesting challenges that are being faced. But I will say this, there are a lot of very funny memes out there when it comes to CEOs who are safe. Costco is safe because they're protecting employees and they're protecting the $1.50 hot dog. And that's something that employees want. Or Arizona tea, right? We're trying to keep that as low as possible. You just have to embrace a modern narrative, which is we need to do right by our clients as much as we have to do right by our shareholders. We have to do right by our employees as much as we have to do right by our shareholders. They can't be isolated anymore. We can't pull the wall over anyone because they talk. And that's the power of distribution and decentralization.
Gotcha. All right. Final question. Someone is just graduating from university today or this year. What's your advice for them as they begin their non-education stage? Because I didn't want to say their work stage or their career, because you said that's not happening anymore. So they move from education to some sort of income generation. What's your advice for them?
Yeah. Build skills based on your preferences, based on what gets you excited. I would also say your self-worth shouldn't be wrapped up in your GPA. That is a falsity that doesn't actually exist. I would also say the skills that you learned in college don't necessarily translate into the workplace. And that is a society problem. And I apologize for that. But like, take your career into your own hands, quote unquote career. And finally, like, use AI. Do whatever you need to incorporate AI into your life. It is the future.
Gotcha. Well, Josh, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate all your insight and wisdom. And what's the name of the book again?
Employment is Dead.
All right. I will leave a link for that in the show notes. Josh, thanks again for joining us today. I really appreciate your insights.
Thank you, Michael.